Staff, we ready to go? IT, ready to go? Cool. Okay, it's 6 o'clock, 6 p.m. I call this meeting to order. Thanks for coming tonight. Madam Clerk, could you please call roll?
Commissioner Dietrich. Here. Commissioner Long. Here. Commissioner Madrid. Here. Vice Chair Thomas. Here. And Chair Ledoux.
I am here. Ben's. Mine's working.
Only yours.
IT, did you hear that? We just got a few mics are blinking red. I'm the only one talking tonight. Give us a moment while we work this out.
Oh yeah, he's right. But right, you can only one at a time is working. Because now mine is green. No.
There it is. Now it is. There must be some setting on there. Is it on there?
So just one mic at a time is going on. It's working. Okay.
That's probably it. To follow Robert's rules in order.
Okay.
Only one person should be talking.
Should we wait or should we proceed? Because we're usually just talking one at a time. Okay, we're going to go ahead and go forward while our IT works on this. Ben, do you want to lead us in the flag salute?
I'd be honored.
All right, please stand. Remove your hats. Thanks, Ben. Okay. No presentations tonight. We need to get approval of our agenda. Are there any modifications to tonight's agenda?
No, none from staff.
Okay. Can I get an approval from the commission for tonight's agenda? All in favor, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed? All right, hearing none. All right, moving on to, this is a public comment section for items that are not on tonight's agenda. Do we have anybody that wants to speak tonight on non-agendized items?
Yes, I do have one request to speak
Okay.
from Monica Hernandez.
Okay, Monica, is Monica here? Will you join us up at the podium, please? Sure. Actually, it was actually for an agenda item. I'm sorry. Oh, okay. Yeah, no problem. No problem. We'll get you. What agenda item was it? Okay, that's the first one we're doing, 9.1. So when we get to that, the clerk will have you down for that, and we'll call you up at that time. Thank you. Anybody else want to speak on anything that's not on tonight's agenda? Okay. All right. Number 7, it says approval of minutes, none, but we do need to approve last meeting's minutes, don't we?
Those will be available for next meeting.
Okay.
So no minutes for today.
Okay. Nothing on the consent calendar, so we'll move right to 9.1. This is item 9.1. Could the deputy director please introduce this item?
Absolutely. Presenting this item is Senior Planner Brett Hamilton. And before he starts, I found out that his sons are watching, so I want to say hi to his kids. So hopefully they get to see this. Bye.
All right, good evening, Chair Ledoux and members of the Planning Commission. So while we've got IT pulling up the presentation, the first item is the tentative track map number 38128. And the location of the project site, it is near the corner of Troy Lane and Byers Road. They're at the southwest corner. It doesn't quite connect down to Rouse Road. There is some Southern California Edison property between the project site and Rouse Road. So that's that property that you see south of it. And then also Valley Boulevard that bisects the project site, leaving kind of a couple little parcels, a little remnant there in the very corner that we'll talk about a little bit more. But I guess generally, bigger picture, it's in the very kind of northwest area of the city, kind of located around the Cimarron Ridge specific plan. So here we just kind of get basically the general plan and zoning designations of the project site and surrounding properties. So the project site itself is low-density residential, which is 2.1 to 5 dwelling units per acre. And some of the surrounding properties as well are also the same zoning designation, also medium-low density, just directly to the east, and then again, as was mentioned, the Cimarron Ridge specific plan around the north and west side of the project site. So this is a view taken last week of the project site. So this is facing basically right there at Troy Lane and Byers. So this would be facing southwest, looking at the project site. So there's the site plan for the tentative track map. Total project site area is right around 28 acres. The project proposes 96 single-family lots, each one being a minimum of 7,200 square feet. The maximum lot size, 11,544, and then an average of all the lots of about 7,630. So different roadways adjacent to the site obviously would be Byers Road at the very east end, and then Valley Boulevard that bisects the project site. So we've got Valley Boulevard with a higher street classification, the arterial 4 lanes divided roadway, as you can see, and then the cross section for Byers Road would be a collector roadway. So as far as landscaping goes, the main park site there kind of towards the western end of the project site is 1.25 acres. Total landscaping across the site that includes all the different HOA and CFD maintained areas is about 4.6 acres. So the water quality basin there at the very northeast corner. And then there's kind of a little bit of I guess you could call it a passive park area down there, that remnant piece that's bisected there by Valley Boulevard. So that piece there, we'll talk about, there's a slide about maintenance, but because it's so far removed from the project site, it's requested to be CFD maintained rather than HOA maintained, just so that, because there's really not direct access or anything to that space, so it really makes a better fit to be just city maintained on that piece there. So here's a little bit more detail on that park site. So the 1.25 acres there on the left, including open lawn areas, play areas for varying age groups, seating areas, walkway path, fencing around the split rail fence around the park site, and then trees surrounding kind of the whole walking trail area and the play area as well to provide shade, and then seating and benches. And then so the top right there, that's essentially a kind of a typical homeowner maintained slope area. So that would be the rear yard, for example, of lot 24 and 25, the side and rear yard slope areas that would be landscaped and homeowner maintained there in the rear yard. And then the bottom right corner here, that's that kind of small 0.38 acre remnant piece that would be proposed to be CFD maintained. So it includes kind of a little walking trail. It has a 10-foot wide DG trail that essentially is an expansion of what would be within the Cimarron Ridge specific plan, basically so that we can just continue that 10-foot wide trail all the way along Valley Boulevard. So in a sense, I kind of view this area as almost a little rest stop, along the way, along a walk or anything like that. Just something to kind of pull off the trail a little bit, sit in the shade. There's going to be some benches here, some trash areas, continue to keep the area nice. So as was mentioned, that remnant piece, it's shown on this exhibit as being HOA maintained, but that's really the only change to this exhibit that we wanted to highlight, was that instead of being HOA maintained, it would be CFD. Then of course the park site would be HOA maintained, as well as all of the side yard areas adjacent to the internal streets. And then the only thing that also would be CFD maintained would be along Byers Road, the entire frontage of the project site, as well as Valley Boulevard. So for environmental review for the project, a mitigated negative declaration was prepared. We did have a public review period of that ISMND from June 2nd to June 21st. Within that time frame, we did receive 3 different comment letters. One was from RTA, indicating that they had reviewed the plans and did not have any comments. EMWD had provided some comments that were kind of just more general information, not really any direct comments related to environmental, and then also an additional comment from a nearby resident who had provided some traffic comments. So all those comments were responded to, and those are what you can find in your blue folder. That's part of that final ISMND document that includes all those comment letters as well as responses to each of those comments. So with the ISMND, there were 3 different sections that include mitigation measures. So the biological resources section has 2 mitigation measures, geology and soils has 1, and transportation includes 5 different mitigation measures for the project. So there's 2 different resolutions before you. The first is to adopt a resolution adopting that initial study and mitigated negative declaration. And then the second resolution is to recommend to approve the tentative track map number 38128, subject, of course, to all the conditions of approval and the findings in the staff report. So that concludes the presentation. Staff and the applicant, as well as our environmental consultant, Michael Baker, are available for any questions that you have.
Okay, thank you, Brett. Great job. I want to tell your kids, Dad did a really good job tonight. Okay, do we have any questions for staff at this point?
Okay, good job, Brett. Could you go back to the slide that shows the water quality basin? I think it's what, 96? Or wait, yeah, 7.
So is this the one you were looking for? So the water quality basin there is at the northeast corner
The upper right.
along Byers Road.
And that's 0.81 acres.
Correct, yeah, 0.81 acres.
I just wanted to point out to everyone that this is one of the things you get from development, because you're seeing that takes up 0.81 acres of that project. So, Nick, could you explain what the purpose of a basin is, water quality?
Sure, Commissioner. So the purpose of the water quality basin is to actually filter out the storm water as it gets collected through the streets and off the rooftops, the landscaping, the roadways. It goes into this water quality feature that helps clean the waters, debris, oils, greases, whatever it might be within the water as it's collected through the drainage collection system. It goes into that water quality basin and then helps scrub the waters to make sure that we're protecting and doing our parts to keep our waters clean within our region.
Great, and you have a program that that maintains it regularly too.
Yeah, that's correct. Through this process, this one will be responsible by the HOA to actually keep it maintained. There are planted vegetation that's within that water quality basin that they will maintain and keep it clean, and the debris from in the bottom of the basins as well.
Okay, thanks, Nick. That's all.
Thank you for your presentation. I have a question about the park at the lower left side. The access way, is the access way pedestrian, for only pedestrian, or for cars as well?
So I think you're referring to the emergency vehicle access point, correct? Kind of right there where those cul-de-sacs come together. Is that what you're talking about?
Yes.
Okay. So yeah, right where those cul-de-sacs come together, that right there is an additional emergency vehicle access that was requested by the fire department. So we have the 2 access points on Byers Road. We felt it was wise to just include another one on Valley Boulevard. So it's a 30-foot wide access area that the primary purpose is to provide access for emergency vehicles. But as currently proposed, there's also a pedestrian gate that would be utilized to help the residents access, all the trail systems along Valley Boulevard.
Yes. Is this park open to general public?
The large 1.25 acre park, that's the one you're referencing?
Okay.
So the large one within inside the development, it's primarily intended for, the residents that are living right here in this community. The project isn't proposed to be gated. The park would also be HOA maintained. So, I mean, there's a lot of times with HOA parks, sometimes you'll see, they'll put up signs, that for residents, of the community only. But again, it's not going to be gated. So, yeah, I mean, it's not intended necessarily to accommodate, residents from all around the area. It is kind of just sized for the community, more of a community park.
Yes. At this particular location, we have 2 parks, one big one and one smaller one on the other side of Valley Boulevard. Is there a crosswalk connecting the 2, or is Valley Boulevard too big?
Yeah, no, and Nick, you can chime in too on it, but yeah, Valley Boulevard, it's 4 lanes of traffic. There's a median So there's no intention of having a mid-block crossing right at that point. It would be too dangerous. So really, again, the intent of that kind of open space area at the very south end of the site, it just kind of became more of a remnant piece because it was bisected based on the alignment of Valley Boulevard. So it's really not intended to be a park space. It's really just intended to be more of an open area that kind of connects to that larger trail system on Valley.
And I'll tie on to what Brett has indicated. So yeah, there will not be a mid-block crosswalk. There will be crosswalks at the signalized intersections. I believe there's one at Rouse and Valley, so they could walk there. As Brett has indicated, there's going to be a very nice trail along Valley Boulevard, which will be a kind of a regional type of facility that the whole community can use. So residents from this community or Cimarron Ridge or whatever other developments that are in the area can utilize this park, but there will not be a crosswalk directly across from that park. It's in a curve. It's a very a major roadway, so there's not ability to put a crosswalk at that location.
Thank you. Yes. One more question. Can you give a summary and a general plan for road, nearby roads improvement or working on, especially the road, Byers Road and Rose Road and the intersection of those two? Can you just give a summary?
Commissioner Long, so the developer is required to improve Byers Road, which is a collector in our circulation element, all the way to Rouse Road. So they will be making all those improvements to that intersection as part of the project. Valley Boulevard, they're responsible to complete their frontage along that as well, and tying into some of the work that's going to be completed by Cimarron Ridge. So there's going to be a lot of new or widened roadways within that area between the two projects.
Excellent. Thank you. That's all for me.
Okay, thank you. I have a couple quick questions. Can we go back to the presentation, IT, so I can see the overview of where that little triangle, there. So you're saying that there's not going to be a crosswalk that goes from this development over to that little park? I thought we had talked about that there was going to be a crosswalk there.
No, there is not a crosswalk at that location.
Okay.
They would be able to utilize, again, when Rouse Road gets signalized, they would utilize that location, or even further up to, I believe, McLaughlin area, there's going to be another signal.
Okay, that was my misunderstanding there. I thought there was a crosswalk in there. So we talked about, Joe talked about Byers connecting down to Rouse, so we're going to fill in that gap there, right? The developer's going to do that. How about the intersection of Byers and Troy? Is there any kind of stop sign, signal, or anything that's going to be required at that corner?
Not at the intersection of Byers and Troy. There will be, if there's not already, there will be a stop sign that will be placed on Troy to protect the through movements as Byers continues straight through.
Okay,
But
so
not-
on Troy, but
yeah,
not on Byers
not on
going
Byers.
north-south. Okay. All right, and then how about access into this development from Byers? Are there turn slots
So
in
they-
there? Or?
This is classified as a collector, so there is no designated left turn lanes on a collector roadway, so
Okay.
they're able to turn from in or out. It's not restricted movement.
Okay. Is Byers going to be a two-lane road, one north and one
Yeah,
south?
correct.
So if someone's waiting they're heading north and they're waiting to turn left into the development, they'll be backing up traffic there?
Go ahead. That's correct. But collectors are typically a two-lane roadway north.
Okay.
South, yeah.
All right, and that was satisfactory with the studies that were done?
Yeah, because they're lower. Collectors are a lower volume roadways.
Okay.
So.
All right, so I just want to make sure we're hitting our standards with that, then we're okay with that, okay. The last question I had was the amount of park space. So do we meet or exceed the minimum park space for a development of this size?
So for this project, the park space satisfies a portion of it. So since it's HOA maintained for Quimby credits, it actually only receives half credit because, again, I think related to one of the questions of, is this a community park? And since it is more just for this local community, not for the general larger area, per our guidelines, it does only receive half credit. So there's still additional Quimby credits that the applicant is going to be required to pay into, basically into a general land or park, fund for parks within the rest of the community.
In lieu of building a bigger park?
Correct.
Okay. Nope.
Would the park, if it were not an HOA maintained, would it be large enough to meet without requiring extra Quimby credits?
So essentially, it was originally designed to be that way. I think it was the total requirement, if it were to be, to meet, not be private, so to speak, it would be about 1.37 acres. But we made some adjustments to the map when we made those offsetting cul-de-sacs, just for safety purposes. There was some line of sight issues. We were concerned because that back end at the west, it's the highest point within the development, so that's actually going to be somewhat of a decline as you go down that hill. So we didn't want residents kind of speeding down that hill, causing an issue with high speeds kind of near that park, and then also coming up to that intersection. So by creating and designing the area with those dual cul-de-sacs, those cul-de-sacs did cut into a little bit of the park space. So instead of the, I think, 1.37 that would have been required, it's the 1.25. So it's just shy of what it would be if it were to be a public park.
Did I understand correctly that this was only recently determined to be an HOA-run park?
No, so this one, the larger park area within the development, has always been anticipated to be HOA. The city typically will not maintain park space less than, I believe it's 3 acres is kind of what the code generally cites. So the smaller park that's bisected there, the remnant piece, that was originally anticipated to perhaps be HOA maintained, but with additional discussion that we've had recently, we came to the conclusion that it made more sense to be CFD, since that portion, that remnant piece, really isn't going to be all that accessible by the homeowner. So we wouldn't want to burden them with those additional HOA fees for a park space, an open space area that really isn't all that usable for them.
Okay, that makes sense. Does the total park space, including that little triangle piece there, is that still less than the 1.3?
No, it would exceed it. So you've got the 1.25 and then the 0.38. So yeah, if it were all public, it would exceed what the minimum requirement would be.
So if we include that corner space, then that little triangle piece, then we are hitting our minimum without the Quimby.
Correct. Yeah. If it was public, but yeah, because again, you only get half credit.
Because it is, they're required to do less. Yeah. But if it's not HOA maintained and we include that triangle piece, we're meeting our minimum.
Yes.
Okay. All right. Well, I guess am I understanding that correctly? I think I am. Okay. All right. Any other questions for staff before we move on? Okay. All right. So let's go ahead and open the public hearing. It is 6:26. Madam Clerk, was the hearing legally noticed?
Yes, it was.
All right. And we've received some correspondence on this?
Yes, as mentioned in the presentation, and they are in your blue folders in front of you.
Very good, thank you. We do have the applicant here, correct? Would you mind please joining us at the podium?
Sure, is it on? Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Good evening, Chairman Ledoux and fellow commissioners. My name is Paul Onifer with JPMB Investments, the applicant for this, and I'm happy to answer any questions you have. We concur with staff and the conditions of approval recommended for this project.
I'm sorry, thank you. Okay. Do we have any, real quick, if you could stay there just for a moment, just in case do we have any questions for the developer? I didn't mean to make you get up and sit down.
That's fine.
Joe, do you have a question for the developer? Okay.
Got it. Yes. For the small triangle park, is it going to be dedicated to the city, or will you still retain ownership, but the maintenance is going to be for responsible, the city is going to be responsible for the maintenance?
Well, I'd be happy to dedicate it to the city if you want it. But I think it's going to be retained by the HOA, and it'll just be, it'll be maintained through the CFD that's going to be for those, it'll be attached to those property owners. So the property owners will be paying for it.
Thank you.
Okay, any other questions for the applicant? Okay, thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Appreciate it. Madam Clerk, do we have any requests to speak on this agenda item? I know we'd have one, at least one.
Yes, we do. Monica Hernandez.
Hi, Monica. Now it's your time to shine. All right, well, you'll have 3 minutes. I think there'll be a timer that shows up there. You'll have 3 minutes to make your statement. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Hi, my name is Monica Hernandez. We live off of Troy Lane. We are in the sublots that are to the east of Troy Lane. I'm sorry, Byers Road. I'm curious about, will there be any, or has there been any discussions regarding any road improvements or any other improvements for the sublots that are east of this community? The reason why I ask is because I'm a little bit concerned about the additional traffic that may come through Troy Lane from Byers or from that community, mainly taking a shortcut to get to maybe like a Winco or some of the other areas over there. It's just kind of a cut that goes through there, and so maybe people don't have to end up on the main road when there's like traffic or, you know, during congested times. So I'm wondering if there may be any improvements for street lights, maybe just from the additional population of people. It could increase crime. That's one of my concerns. The other is for paved roadways. Maybe with the additional traffic, there may be a little bit more dust and stuff. Those are dirt roads, and it's already hard enough trying to maintain keeping the dust off of my vehicle living on a dirt road. But, you know, windows and, you know, other things too. It's you know, just something that I'm taking into consideration. And also future utilities. We don't have currently sewer or gas tie-ins. I know that with the community, they just installed a new storm drain line and sewer line and stuff, and I'm just wondering if there'll be any additional work that might end up a little east so that we could eventually tie into those systems and not have to use a septic or maybe have access to gas.
Okay,
That's all
thank
I
you.
have. Yeah.
Thank you. Appreciate it. Do we have any other requests to speak?
No other requests to speak for this item.
Okay. Chris, did you have something to add?
Yeah, I was just gonna ask staff, I know you're improving Buyer in that missing section, but is it full width improvement from Troy down to, what is it? At full length? Is it 2-lane, or is it their side plus 12? Are you doing curb and gutter on both sides?
No, this one is the half width plus 12 is our typical standard, but I do want to say that as part of the Cimarron Ridge project, it will continue Byers up to McLaughlin as well. So there'll be as the two projects come together, we'll extend Byers all that distance from McLaughlin to Rouse.
So it will be paved the entire length,
Yeah,
and I'll have curb and gutter on the west side.
on the west side.
Okay.
Chair, my apologies. Just a reminder, will you please close the public hearing? Will you please close the public hearing? Oh,
Okay. It is 6:32. We'll close the public hearing. Did staff have any comments on anything that Monica brought up in terms of the sewers or sewer connections or streets?
Obviously, as development occurs in that area, infrastructure gets brought along with it. I'm not familiar exactly where the sewer will be installed to through this area, but it does take development to extend those resources or that infrastructure out to the area. We do have a few developments that are occurring, the Cimarron Ridge project, this project, and so it does bring that necessary infrastructure out and make it a little bit more feasible for those properties that were developed before infrastructure was there with the septic tanks and the water systems, but it does not extend it down Troy.
Okay.
Yep.
Thank you for addressing that. Yeah, Chris.
Just to clarify, as part of the conditions of approval, you're installing streetlights on, is it Byers that's going down? All the way down, right?
Yeah, that's correct. Is that as part of their project, that when they do the widening on the west half, they will install the street lights, sidewalks, yeah. And on Valley, yeah.
Okay, thank you. All right, this is our time now to talk amongst ourselves. Do we have any questions or discussion or comments amongst ourselves? Randy? Okay, so we have two resolutions for adoption. We'll need a motion and a second to recommend approval of staff recommendations.
So moved?
I'll second. Randy moved, I second. Our screens say waiting. Is there?
No, I'm sorry. I'm trying to
That's okay.
get there.
Should we do a voice vote at this point? Okay.
Yes.
All right. Do you want to go down the row and?
Yes. Commissioner Dietrich. Aye. Commissioner Long. Aye. Commissioner Madrid.
Aye.
Vice Chair Thomas. Aye. And Chair Ledoux.
Aye.
The motion passes.
And that was for both motions, both resolutions, yeah. Okay. Congratulations, thank you. Okay, we'll move on to item 9.2. Could the Deputy Director please introduce this item?
Thank you, Chair. If you recall, this item was continued from last meeting, and Associate Engineer Diego Guillen will make the presentation.
Good evening, Chair Ledoux and Commissioners, Planning Commissioners. I'm Diego Guillen, CIP Associate Engineer, and I have a presentation for you. So this is for our CIP 2202 Valley Boulevard widening project. And the project is located on, let's see, on the northwest quadrant of the city in, there we go. And so it's located in the northwest of the city in, I believe, District 1. And the project is, starts from Murrieta Road, goes west, northwest, and all the way up to Chambers Road. Those are the limits of our widening. And the project will widen the two existing lane road to a 4-lane road. It is about 2.1 miles. The project will include raised medians, turn lanes, 6 traffic signals, 1 new traffic signal at EMWD facility, sidewalk, bike lanes, ADA ramps, and landscape walls. The existing pavement will be rehabilitated. New pavement sections will be applied where needed. And the route will be a continuous route along Valley Boulevard from Murrieta all the way to Chambers Road. We will need to acquire right-of-way at 2 missing gaps, two missing locations. The first one is through the EMWD facility. We're coordinating with them all the future projects that they have in the area, and then also any requests and right-of-way needs that we need from them. And the second gap will be at the north of McCall Boulevard. And here we'll go get some. And here is the typical section of the widening. Roughly, we will need about 110 feet. Well, we have about 110 feet of existing right-of-way, 2 northbounds, 2 southbound lanes, curb gutter, sidewalk, median, block walls, and new paving. The block walls where we'll be constructed is at these resident locations where either the property is lower than the existing road or higher than the existing road, and this is really more for privacy concerns. At the first gap is through the EMWD location, which is Murrieta, closer to Murrieta, and everything in blue is our existing right-of-way. Everything in red is the right-of-way that we need, which is about 2,000 linear feet, and also a potential traffic signal at the EMWD facility to connect their north facility to the south, since we're kind of cutting right through it. The second location where a right-of-way is needed is at the missing link. This is north of McCall Boulevard. We will need about 110 feet wide of right-of-way, and everything in blue is the existing, and everything in red is what is needed, which is about 1,000 linear feet. These are EMWD's future projects that will be coming in for, I believe, for the next 9 to 10 years. They have a future 24-inch brackish water line, which is the red and the purple. They have a 36-inch potable water line, which is the blue, an 18-inch potable water line, the yellow, and a 30-inch and another 30-inch potable water line, the cyan and the dark cyan. And then that's their construction schedule. The project schedule and funding will be shovel-ready by September 2024. Unfortunately, this project is not fully funded. We currently have about $3.5 million. We're exploring regional funds through RCTC and local funds. The estimated construction cost is about $13.9 million. This does not include the improvement through the EMWD facility and the right-of-way acquisition, which is an additional $2 million. Let's see, CEQA requires decision-making body to consider and approve the ISMND. Our Menifee municipal code gives us planning commission authority to adopt the CEQA documents. And let's see, the environmental determination, the ISMND was prepared pursuant to the CEQA requirements for this project. And the ISMND states that the above project will not have a significant effect on the environment with the incorporation of the following mitigations. The standard mitigations include a pre-construction survey for burrowing owl, nesting birds, cultural resource management plan, paleontological resource impact mitigation program, and tribal monitoring. The recommendations: conduct a public hearing, adopt the resolution of the ISMND for our 2202 project based on the findings that incorporate the initial study and conclusion that the project will not have a significant effect on the environment. And any questions? We do have the consultants here tonight to answer any specific questions regarding the ISMND. And any other questions they may have?
All right, great. Thank you, Diego. Appreciate the presentation. Do we have any questions for staff on this? Ben?
So there's two things that stick out here. Number one, we're $10 million off on the funding, but I have confidence you guys. You got that under control, right? And we don't have the right of way. That's a big chunk. So I was going to ask at first, could we phase it? But the start of it is a bunch of it. So, but you've got a September shovel-ready date.
2024.
24. Well, that comes. So you got all that under control, right?
Yes.
Let me help answer your question. So as Diego indicated, we're constantly looking for various types of funding sources, whether it's through regional, state, or federal funding sources. What does help us in achieving those funds or to be shovel ready is to be complete, because when we receive funds, they want to see that money put into action as soon as possible. So it is, I mean, obviously there's a big gap in what we have and what we need, but we do need to get through the environmental, the right-of-way, and the design, or the design and then the right-of-way to be ready to construct. And so this is just the natural course of a major project of this size. It takes several years to go through the environmental design and then right-of-way process, and then to build up the funding amounts to meet all those parts. So like Diego also indicated, we're trying to also coordinate with EMWD. They have some major projects as well that go through that corridor. So there may be some phasing packages as we move forward to help facilitate coordination with them as well. But our goal is to try to complete this in one package. Obviously, we need that first connection through EMWD is the primary connector. And as we move forward to the north, we'll help complete that. On top of that, we have a lot of development that's occurring north of McCall, the Cimarron Ridge projects, the last project we just spoke about. Those also will be building big segments of Valley Boulevard north of our area. Those projects also contribute to our DIF and TUMP programs. So those type of funding programs also help us gain funding for this project.
Okay, I believe you. Good job, guys. Yeah, you're just getting a head start, and you're going to make it all the timing come together. Thank you.
Yeah, I had a question about what, if any, impacts this project might be having on the Salt Creek Trail there, in particular that traffic signal that was being proposed to go in.
So you're talking about the Salt Creek south of, or I guess right there at Murrieta.
Right there, yeah.
So this project, it ties into Murrieta north of the corridor. So it's maybe 600 feet north, 500-600 feet north of the trail. So it doesn't have any impact to it. Just so you're aware, full disclosure, we are working on a project to do a bridge over the Salt Creek at Murrieta as well. That is in the very initial stages. We're, I think, only right now going out for consultants. Diego's project manager for that project. So yeah, that project will have an impact to the trail, but we'll incorporate that into the design of the overcrossing project.
Great, thank you.
I know we talked in our one-on-one meeting about this, the intersection of Honey Run and Valley. I live over in this area. I know we have some people in the audience that live in this area. This is a big ingress and egress in and out of those neighborhoods over there, especially when Salt Creek floods Normandy. Going out on Honey Run's really the only way to get out of the neighborhood. So I didn't notice anything in the plans yet for that intersection, but I want to make sure that we get it on the record that we're talking about that intersection and possibly installing another signal there or stop sign, something there for traffic control, because it is going to be busy.
I appreciate the comments, and yeah, you were very preliminary in our designs, and we do look at Honey Run is a collector roadway, so we can analyze that as we get further along into our design of the projects.
Okay, it's a collector, same as Byers.
Byers is a
Okay,
collector.
Byers is 2 lanes. Right now, Honey Run's 4 lanes.
Yeah.
It's big and it's well traveled.
Maybe it's a secondary. I'm sorry, it's an urban arterial.
Okay.
Yeah.
Just so we're on the record that we're talking about it and that something will be done with that in terms of studying and preparing for it. So, Okay, any other
I'm
questions
sorry,
for staff?
it's not an urban arterial, it's a secondary roadway.
I didn't mean to catch you off guard. Nick.
Yeah, I'm glad
Sorry.
you brought that with us. It's a secondary.
Okay, any other questions for staff? Okay. All right, so let's go ahead and open the public hearing. It is 6:48. Madam Clerk, was this legally noticed?
Yes, it was.
Perfect. And any correspondence received?
Yeah, we received a little, I forgot to include it in the presentation, but we received comments from CDFW and SCAG, and we responded to those comments. They've been addressed in the ISMND. If there's any specific comments, we do have consultants with us.
Very good, thank you. Are there any requests to speak on this item?
Yes, there are a couple requests to speak. First up is Peter Ellert. Let's see. Oh,
Hi, Peter. Welcome.
Good afternoon. My name is Peter Ellert. Thanks for letting me speak. I spoke with Diego just the other day. Nice to meet you face to face. I was in a business meeting in Mexico. I made it back for this. I had some questions. My wife and I live right at the end of the cul-de-sac right there, or side of our house is Valley Boulevard with the water reclamation on that south side, and then the new EMWD is in our backyards where that last corner right there. So I was wondering if the sound barrier wall that's coming all the way down Valley Boulevard, we have an opening at the end of that cul-de-sac, if that's going to be closed in. So that was a question I gave for Diego. And then I see the proposed light at the start of the current EMWD, and I would much rather see it at the Honey Run section. Otherwise, we're going to have a stop there, stop right before the water reclamation, and then another light right there at Marietta. So not only would I not really want to look at a traffic light from my backyard, I think it would be more efficient to be at the Honey Run Road, because now when that 4-lane road, everybody coming from Paris going to the 15 freeway, that's going to be their spot. So I'd like to hopefully move that light down to Honey Run personally. And then I was just concerned if they're going to close off that wall and if they're going to heighten it at all. So those are the questions I had for everyone. And then also, when will this project be reaching the water reclamation is another question we had.
All right, thank you, Peter.
Thank you.
next speaker is Arnold Hall.
Good evening, sir. Thank you for coming.
Thank you for allowing me to speak. I talked to Mr. Diego on the phone, and we had a conversation about the noise coming from Valley Boulevard from a 2 to a 4 lane. And right now, when there's rush hour in the morning or evening, it's pretty horrendous. And I'm speaking on behalf of Lillian because she lives right on Portsmouth, which is 3 doors from Roanoke and Valley Boulevard. And it's really horrendous noise now. And I was asking Mr. Diego whether there was going to be any mitigation on the noise, and he said yes, they're considering rubberized pavement maybe, or retaining wall to help block some of the noise. And I'm glad to see on your picture there that you had a wall there going along. And I don't know how high the wall needs to be to be able to mitigate that noise, but with 4 lanes and as this area is building, it's really going to get noisy. So quality of life for her and anybody that on that Portsmouth, and the value of their homes, having a major boulevard sending incredible noise is really going to be dramatic. And I thank you for getting that into the plans. And I'm just here to respond to the issue that we are concerned about the noise. If they can, I don't know how high the wall could be or should be, and it's very important to have some reasonable abatement for that. So I hope you take that into consideration for helping her. And that's all I got to say. Thank you.
All right, thank you, thank you. Are there any other requests to speak?
No other requests to speak.
All right, so we're going to close, let's see, it's 6:53. We'll close the public hearing at this time. Commissioners, do we have some discussion, questions amongst ourselves for?
Should we answer the last gentleman's questions about the wall and the acoustics and did you want to address that, Nick, or and the traffic signal?
So thank you. Going through some of those questions, we are proposing to put a 6-foot-high wall throughout the corridor. There are some houses that are below grade, some are above grade, but the elevation of the wall will be consistent with the road profile of about a 6 foot. We did go and look at the little gap section. We're not sure why there was a section of wrought iron fence placed in the areas, so that will be filled in, which the first speaker had mentioned. The traffic signal at EMWD's facility, obviously we're bisecting their operations in half. We have been meeting with EMWD to try to consolidate some of their entrances onto their facility, but they do operate large trucks. So they do need the ability to maneuver those large trucks across Valley Boulevard. We are coming up with ways to consolidate it. We might be able to maybe make it not a full-blown signal based off of some of our last conversations that we've had with them. It might be just a half signal, and then potentially a pedestrian crossing, signalized pedestrian crossing for them to get back and forth between their two operations, because they do have treatment plants on both sides, and they need to move equipment back and forth safely. So we are looking at that, and then again, we'll review the Honey Run intersection. But our goal is very consistent with the speaker. We don't want to put his signals where we don't need to, but we do need to work with the MWD because we are bisecting their facility in half. So our goal would be to not have it there, but we, depending on their operation and their operational needs, will determine what type of signal that they'll facilitate the movements that they need to get in and out of their facility.
So that's where safety trumps the.
Yeah.
I'm glad you're paying attention to these. Thank you, Nick.
The 6-foot-high wall, is that going to be just on the east side of Valley or both sides?
Both sides, yeah.
So it's going to be a nice looking corridor.
Yeah, if you look at all of our corridors through town, we have a minimum standard of 6 foot high along our major corridors. There are landscape wall that does a little bit of both landscape, decorative, and noise abatement.
Fantastic. Okay, good.
Yeah.
Thank you. Any other discussion from us? No. Okay. So there's one resolution for adoption. Go back to the agenda here. Our screens still have the waiting on the vote. Is that an IT thing, or is that something that we can cancel out?
No, go ahead and make a motion in a second, and I'll plug it in, and you'll.
We'll do a verbal again. Okay. All right. So we'll need a motion in a second to adopt staff recommendations.
So moved.
I second it.
Ben? Okay. Give me 1 minute and I'll get it up. There we go. Do you see it now?
Okay, so that's 9.1 for the vote.
Darn, sorry about that. Clear that.
It just went away. Mine was 9.1.
Let's see.
That's 10.1.
Okay. Commissioner Dietrich,
Aye.
Commissioner Long,
Aye.
Commissioner Madrid,
Aye.
Vice Chair Thomas,
Aye.
and Chair Ledoux.
Aye. So that passes 5-0. Okay, moving on to, we have a discussion item tonight, item 10. Could the Deputy Director please introduce this item? Actually, if you want to wait a second, well, thank you all for coming for the, yeah. We still have a meeting to go with. Yeah, thank you. Thanks, Nick. Thank you. They don't know, but if there's less than 5 people in the audience, then we turn this into a big party. So they're missing out. All right, Orlando, thank you.
Thank you, Chair. The last item before you, it's a discussion item that we have, and Associate Planner Fernando Herrera will do the presentation.
Good evening, Honorable Chair and members of the Planning Commission. The item before us is for the proposed architectural and design review, a workshop for a mixed-use office and car wash proposal that's located down the street here on Hahn Road. So this is a proposed location of the project, just a few parcels away from us. The general plan and land use designation for the project is Economic Development Corridor, Northern Gateway, and it's located within the new Port Hub specific plan. Oh, wait. I'm sorry, that should be Newport Hub specific plan, not Economic Development Corridor. The project applicant submitted a pre-application on May 10th, and we have been working with the applicant. They submitted a formal application on November 10th of 2022, and since then we've gone back and forth several times with the applicant in regards to the architecture of the proposed design. In May 4th, the applicant requested to have a workshop with you, the Planning Commission, to get some input on your thoughts of the proposed design of the building. So this is what the proposed project is looking like right now. The proposed building is going to be located towards the rear of the parcel, and in the front there's going to be the parking area as well as a vacuum area. The proposed office space is going to be located on top of the car wash, so it's going to be a 2-story building. Planning staff's concerns is going to be primarily with the elevation that's facing Hahn Road. This is what the latest iteration of the building looks like. Staff's concerns are going to primarily be with the open stairwell, with the lack of breakage of the roof form, and then the lack of window space along the Hahn Road elevation. Here we see another elevation and view of the proposed building. And lastly, this is a view from the 215 looking down at the site. So our concern isn't going to be primarily with the 215, since it does have that glass facade, the Class A office building look. It's going to be more towards the Hahn side. So the Planning Division is looking for feedback on the proposed architecture. The applicant's representatives are here for questions. We understand architecture is subjective, but planning does feel that the design standards could be better met. This concludes staff's presentation. We are available for questions.
All right, thank you, Fernando. This is our time to ask questions of the staff.
Yeah, do you know roughly, I mean, I don't need an exact answer, but how many times have you gone back and forth, and how much has the architecture changed since the beginning versus what we're looking at now?
Yeah, I would say approximately like 10 times. It's changed a little bit. It's more towards the focus of the details of the finishing, of the glazing, but planning is looking more towards the big picture items.
If I can make just one additional comment, throughout this process, we've guided the applicant to look at other examples. We point them to those examples as to what we typically see in terms of architectural standards, and the changes that have occurred throughout the process have been just minor architecture elements to the same concept of the original architecture that we received for the project, if that makes sense.
I think we're here to discuss the architecture, so it's the aesthetics pretty much. But what sticks out to me is that stairway, that it's exposed, and that I'd like to see a feature that maybe a door there that's locked after operating hours. And just to help me, what's the purpose of that building? Because it's a car wash, and it's a self-serve car wash. Is that for the car wash offices?
Yeah, so the stairwells would be for the office uses on the second level. So it's going to be a mixed-use development. So the first story is going to be car washes, and then my understanding is that the equipment is going to be facing Han Road. So that's what the applicant had expressed some concerns of the first story, but the second story would be office space, and the stairwells would be for that.
Commissioner Madrid and Chair, if I can ask the Commission that perhaps at this point we give the applicant an opportunity to present his project and the idea behind this design, and maybe ask him questions, and then after that have the discussion in the direction that we need from the Commission.
What I see the importance of this meeting is when we give them comments and they come back they listen to our comments and they apply them, and we're pretty happy. So I think this is a really important meeting, is what I'm saying, so they can come back with something.
Yeah, thanks, Randy. I agree. The applicant is here? Yes. Okay, would you mind joining us up at the podium and introducing yourself for us, please?
Good evening. I'm Jay Park. I'm the architect and representative. The applicant is currently out of country, so I'll be here on his behalf.
Your name is Jay?
Jay Park, yes.
Jay Park, thank you.
Architect of the project. Yes. Just to kind of respond to your question, the open stair was specifically mandated by the police department, one of the earlier meetings, that they want a maximum visibility to prevent any I guess, crime or homeless activity or whatever. So we purposely designed the stairs as open as much as possible. So all the activity on that part of the facade is visible from the Han Road.
Is that true that the police department requested or required open stairway?
It really depends on what the design, how the project is designed, right? So if you're going to have an exterior stairway, there's multiple ways of designing it. So if you're going to have an exterior stairway, then PD will have concerns if it's partially blocked and you block the visibility. So there are some concerns, but obviously there's other ways of doing it where it can be fully enclosed and still achieve the same concerns that the PD has.
I agree with you. And in fact, this commission has been discussing a new proposed self-storage building off of Holland, and they had the same idea with exterior stairwells, and we didn't like that idea at all. So they came back with a full redesign that completely hides the stairwells, and they're so she came back in with a phone in her hand. She said that the blonde lady that was sitting up here, she said that somebody either left it or lost it or whatever, so she brought it back in. Okay, we'll deal with that later. You turn the sound off? Thanks, Mike. I apologize. Yeah, so we have asked that applicant to completely redesign that so the stairs are hidden. It probably, I'm assuming, you guys can speak up if I'm wrong, but I think that the rest of us would probably like to see the same thing with those stairwells redesigned so they are hidden, so they're not shown out in the open like they are. Do you guys agree? Tend to agree?
No, I'm just here to respond to any questions you may have, in addition to Fernando's comments.
So Jay, are you saying that you did it that way because that's what was dictated
What we
to you
were
to do?
asked, but we have no issue redesigning to satisfy your design preference.
Okay, Joe.
Okay, yes. Thank you. I'm focusing on the, because of the lower level car wash, the car wash operation is going to generate vibrations and especially hazardous vapors, water, moisture coming out from the car wash. And on the upper level, it's office buildings where people work all day. So I'm very concerned about the effect of the hazardous vapor going up, okay? And the noise level. Car wash has a certain level of noise and vibration noise and a huge amount of moisture. So those are the three. I would also like to see a separation of the two businesses out. Right now, of course, the stairway is just looking so bare. The buildings, one on top of the other, just like vanilla box, one on top of the other. I would really hope to see more stylish architectural. And another problem I have with this project is for the car wash, what's a typical operating hours for a car wash?
My apologies, Chair. I do want to remind the Commission that this business item is solely relating to the architectural review and design of the project, and is not about approval or conditions or any operating hours and whatnot, or the actual business itself. We're looking at the style, whether it's aesthetically pleasing, the color, etc., and the architecture of the project. Thank you.
I withdraw my question.
Yeah.
Now, I have another
thank
question.
You. All due respect, I think our answer part of your question regarding the separation, visual separation of car wash and then office above. We put our best attempt to express differently, so that it doesn't look flat or single form. But as you can see, the massing at upper floor and also choice of material and color are completely separated, and it's projecting in both south, north, and east elevation by the frame. So there is a sort of three-dimensional distinction from the base of car wash and then upper floor of office space.
So Jay, is this? Excuse me.
Sorry, I don't mean to interrupt. IT, can we get the presentation back up where we can see like a close up of the building, just so we have something to look at while we're talking?
Absolutely.
I didn't mean to interrupt you, sir. That one there? How about that? That's good. That one? Okay, thank you. Thanks, IT.
So Jay, are we looking at a building that was done under any direction by planning, or is this just totally your first?
Well, we started with our including the client's sort of a vision. And then we implement numerous comments were received from the planning department, also from various other departments as a fire and police. So these are the result of probably a month, 1 year of a collaboration back and forth.
So this is under the direction somewhat of.
Yes.
It's gone back and forth 10 times.
Yes. Yes. I mean, I guess we're here. Mostly, they're satisfied with three-sided elevation facing the freeway, north and south. But however, the facade that facing the Han Road, which is about 550 feet away from the Han Road, and then the configuration of the site is actually a wedge, like a pie, and so the property facing the Han Road is only 50 feet wide. And we're planting about 45 trees, mostly along the two side yard, abutting the neighbor properties, and then middle of the parking. So, I mean, it's gonna look like a park. There's so many trees. Now the building may be barely visible from the Han Road, especially driving around. But then we do want the best architecture as possible to satisfy myself and then owner. And the city.
Yeah, Mr. Park, I agree. The building's going to be kind of far back on the site. However, I don't think that supersedes our desire to have a nice looking building.
Sure.
We've covered the stairs. None of us like the way the stairs look now, so that needs to be redone.
Okay.
The ground floor, all of that gray solid gray look flat, I'm not a big fan of at all. On the second floor, all the entrances to the individual offices, it's just flat. It doesn't look like there's any kind of texture or anything to make that stand out. So I'm not a fan of kind of the way that the whole west side of the building looks.
Mm-hmm.
And I personally would strongly suggest going back and working with staff and incorporating their design ideas. I'm by no means a design expert or an architect or anything like that, but the way the building looks, I'm not a big fan, and I would strongly suggest going back to staff and incorporating some of their ideas. People that get paid to do this, more than I do. So I don't know if anybody else has anything else to say on that.
So, what were you trying to accomplish with the gray on the west side lower? What, it looks like you're trying to black it out, or what was the purpose of that?
Well, it's sort of providing a two contrasting material from the upper and then lower mass, and then contained by this sort of a white big sort of a floating mass, and then roof line, and then edge of the balcony. So idea is to, rather than sort of single language, you want to play with multiple ideas, layers, material, projection, the depths, and materiality, transparent versus solid. The solid is purely based on the just the functionality of the equipment behind on the ground floor. But then we do introduce some clear story. To give some transparent glasses element. And the upper second floor, to understand the building width is actually only 33 feet wide. So naturally, on this side of a building facade is actually the walkway into each multiple office entrance rather. So yeah, the colors were to kind of play the contrast of white, neutral, natural, and then dark.
So I understand your intent. So what I'm not a big fan of the gray. To me, it looks like the back of a garage or something. So I like how you did the wood. See how the wood on the ceiling and all that?
Yes.
That's
right.
kind of nice.
Okay.
So I would personally, big picture here is I'm not thrilled with car washes. Okay, we have a lot of them, and especially in this area, which is, the main purpose was business, tech development, things like that. So if you look as an example to the auto body shop 2 lots over,
Yeah.
they had bays open on all sides. It looked like auto body, and we basically asked them to make it look like an office building, which they did, and then they shielded it with trees. So if you look at them, they're doing something, slightly industrial, but it doesn't look like an industrial building. So we would ask you to do the same thing here. When I look from Han, I would like to see something in the same theme as the buildings all around it that looks like an office building, medical, tech, something like that. So I would personally finish the front, enclose the stairwell, enclose everything. So when you're looking at it, it looks like, hey, that could be a doctor's office. That could be a medical, a tech building. It could be a lot of things, but it's in the same theme. So I would enclose the whole thing front there, and then if you want to do some differentiation by texture and color, use that wood. I like the white with the natural wood. That's kind of the theme in design nowadays, is you've got the industrial with the natural, right? So I would encourage you to do that, first of all. Number 2, on the east side, looking from the freeway, I personally do not want Menifee to be known as, you go in and you see all these nice medical buildings, car wash. Nothing wrong with a car wash, they serve a good purpose. But that's kind of like the jewel walking in, when you're driving into Menifee. Don't necessarily want a car wash to be the theme. So the windows on the west side, I would request to be darkened like the other buildings, so it looks like an office building. So I don't know if you were trying to, have people look and say, oh, that's a car wash, I can look in the windows. I would prefer it to look like an office building. So darken the windows on the west side, enclose the east side, use some natural materials to differentiate. And the goal would be to drive in the driveway and see an office building. And the third thing is, can we go to the slide where it shows the money, where they take the money and check you in? I don't know, it's like 1 or 2 before this. IT. Okay, keep going, keep going. Right there. So you see how you got the little booth where you drive in and they check you in and you pay and all that?
Yeah.
What could we do to make it not look like a booth? Enclose it, make it look like a small, I don't know, something. Enclose it, or use maybe some more natural materials, not the orange. We don't want this to look like a gas station. We want it to look like an office building. So I would encourage you to kind of look at that design. And I understand you probably received certain direction to do it one way, and that's why we're here to kind of guide you on the other. Those are my main thoughts on this. Just keep big picture office building. Okay? Yeah.
Yeah, thank you. I just want to echo the Vice Chair Thomas, all the issues. The compatibility with the surrounding buildings is critical. Now, if you look at the rendition here, when driving on Hahn Road, you're going to see car wash right away. I am concerned about the first visual impression of the lot. Another concern I have is you have 2 businesses. Do you designate parking for the office business? Because for the car wash, you're going to get a lot of car moving in, moving out, and it might interfere.
I don't know if that stays within the realm of the architecture that we have to focus on. I think that probably would come later. When we look at the parking and the specific uses. I think we probably still have to focus on that. I see where you're going, and I agree.
Okay.
The purpose of this meeting, that's focus on.
Okay. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
I just want to ask, so I'm going to violate what he said in a way, but I'm going to make an architectural question. So are the parking spaces where they're not overhead, is that no vacuums there?
That's correct.
Okay.
So we're providing 24 parking spaces, shared by office, and maybe, yeah, mostly for office or staff. And then there are 26 vacant stations.
Okay, I want to ask a question about that glass facade there. What is that that's off next to the
Yeah, that's
stairway?
kind of floating glass element in front of the walkway, just to add some element of glass, just to help soften up that facade, and kind of has a clear exit from the Hahn Road.
And I asked the rest of the commissioners, why doesn't that go all the way to the ground?
Because on the ground level, there's a walkway for ADA. So if it comes down, then it sort of intrudes with the, I guess, the ADA requirement. So we kind of sort of, it ended above the 8 feet above.
Okay, so going back to what Commissioner Chris Thomas said, right now it looks like a Motel 6. I mean, we're here to critique this
Yeah,
right now. We're not.
sure. Yeah.
We're not paying for all this stuff. But just to give you an idea, that's and that color. Yeah, I don't like the gray either.
Okay. We can certainly substitute the materials. Yeah.
Do you have brand colors that you have to stay with?
I guess the owner or applicant would like to, but I think he's open to idea of deviating from the brand color if that doesn't go with the design.
So you don't have other car washes that you try to identify with?
The applicant does. He has several car washes with brand, and the orange is the.
So the orange is
yeah.
That's where that comes from.
Yeah.
Yeah, that wood that Commissioner Thomas pointed out, that is nice.
Yeah. I can convince the applicant to use more natural material.
Did you consider stone or brick in any of it either?
Yeah, or it could be kind of wood cladding.
In addition to,
Yeah.
keep the wood for sure.
Yeah.
Thanks, Randy. I definitely agree with Commissioner Thomas's suggestions. I think he nailed it. I think he nailed it, and I'd kind of lean towards what Chris was saying. And as long as that kind of lines up with what staff is thinking, what staff has been suggesting, I kind of like those ideas. So, anybody else have any? Ben, you want to say? You want to?
No, I think what's everybody said so far, I think we're all kind of on the same page of an agreement. I think the main thing is, for me, is kind of conforming with the surrounding uses, right? If you drive around this little circle right here, most of the buildings all look like they belong together, and what's being presented here looks like it stands out. It doesn't really fit into the design of the surrounding buildings. So I think something that looks like an office building, like Vice Chair Thomas was discussing, I think that's really what I would be looking for, so that it doesn't look like a car washer and doesn't look out of place in the surrounding area, because this is kind of our business park area of the community. So I think we want to keep with that style.
Okay, understood.
Mr. Park, do you feel like you got some good feedback from us tonight and accomplished your goal of having the workshop?
Yes, we can sort of study, implement, and then can review with the planning department.
Very good. Okay. Thank you.
Question for planning. So you have these comments documented for him, so he can.
Yeah,
go over 'em?
Commissioner Madrid, what we'll do is summarize the comments that we heard from the commission and send those over to the applicant. We'll have a follow-up meeting and kind of brainstorm essentially what we heard in the direction that we want this building to look like.
Thanks. Good idea to have this workshop, guys. Thank you for showing up, Jay.
Oh, absolutely. Thank you.
I'll just make one more comment, if I could. This from my understanding in this specific plan, it requires a CUP to allow a car wash. So what that was done that way, why they require CUP, is because they wanted to be able to hold it to a higher standard if you're going to do a car wash.
Mm-hmm.
So just keep that in mind. We may be requiring some things that may be different from what you're initial desire was on design, but if a car wash is gonna be here, it's gotta exceed that CUP standard. That's why, so.
Okay, thank you.
Anything else? Okay. Madam Clerk, were there any requests to speak?
No, there were not.
Okay, Mike, you got anything to say? Mr. Park, thank you. Mr. Park, thank you for coming in and meeting with us tonight. Appreciate it.
Thank you for having me. It was
Yeah.
productive.
Good luck working with the staff, and hopefully we'll see something come
Sure.
across our
We're-
desk. Okay. All right, moving on. We didn't open a public hearing for that, right? No, okay. All right. Our lovely community development director's not here, but Mr. Hernandez, would you like to, you got anything for us on the CDD comment section?
I do not have any comments for you tonight.
I'm sorry?
Unless I don't have any comments for you tonight unless you have any questions for me.
Okay. Do we have any questions for Mr. Hernandez? I'm going to save mine for Ms. Kitzrow. Okay, any reports on committee activities from our commissioners? Nothing? Any future agenda items? Okay. It is 7:29. Let's hold on for a minute. I'm just kidding. We'll go ahead and close the meeting at 7:29. Meeting adjourned.